Hey everybody, I'm Nico,
And I'm TK.
and we are here to discuss one of the most tentpole landmark elements of 90s X-Men. We're going to be talking about Apocalypse the 12. We're going to throw in some Ages of Apocalypse and then Powerless. And I am so stoked because like half of the thesis of this revamp was kick things off just before the 12 and then roll right into Revolution. I'm so excited. I'm like jazzercised jazz to talk about this.
I am so glad.
Oh, did you not feel the love? Is this not
Man, I gotta tell you. So I have loved this run. And you were correct. Like we talked about this, like the 12 being a big milestone to get to and what we were doing. And the only issue I have read is that X-Men 97 or 98, the Alan Davis drawn fake future one that we'll talk about. That's the only issue I'd ever read from it. And so like I was excited to get to it. Enjoyed most that we would discuss in this run of books that I had from this era that I had never read before. This is not the case. That is not what happens. Which is not to say that I'm not excited to talk about it. This is in no way like, oh, you screwed me here. I thought, because I love Apocalypse and I love, Summer's Gray lore and I love Mutant Circuits. I really thought this would be the one for me. And I love Alan Davis too. Alan Davis is often a really, really good writer and has been a really good writer in stuff that we have discussed in the last few months. This is just didn't end up being any of those things. I'm stoked because we talked about so much stuff that I really did like. And I'm stoked that like so much of the stuff that I was like, we're gonna talk about stupid Magneto War. That's gonna be dumb. Yeah. So there's the lead up to this was really great. The journey was great. Sort of see this as the destination. This is not my favorite destination. The airport lounge in Houston was a lot hotter than this.
And I agree with you about all of that. And that's why I'm excited about the discourse.
Cool.
Because this is the discourse that we're having. Like the internet has its own thoughts on things. There's such a disconnect between intent, response, and then historical reflection, right? Mm-hmm. Something I talked about in one of our bonus episodes is some stuff I read when I was young and hated, and then got to reread again as an adult and still probably don't like, but am grateful for. Mm-hmm. One of the things about comics is we have this huge birth to look back on what's happened and look at now and sort of take the pieces. I'm so glad you brought up Mutant Circuits because I think Mutant Circuits are in many ways owing to this. And don't get me wrong, I know, fastball special, first Mutant Circuit, fine. But Mutant Circuits are in so many ways owing to this, and yet this Apocalypse cannot be Krakoan Apocalypse.
Hey, I'm really sorry to bring this up when we're talking about other stuff. I didn't notice this before. What shirt are you wearing right now?
Oh, I'm wearing a classic X-Men.
Where's this from? I've never seen this.
Oh, yeah, no, this is in my amazing closet of nerd shirts. So I broke this.
You've never busted this one out for me.
No, and isn't it cute?
It is very cute. I like it a lot. We're going to have to discuss this in person at some point.
Yeah, it's so great. I've had it for like 15 years. So
okay.
Super God, thank you for noticing. Also, I have this amazing Uncanny X-Men hat.
But the hat I do know. The hat I know and love. I'm always stoked to see you wearing the hat.
Right.
The shirt, I really like the shirt. Back to like actual conversation.
Yeah. So just to run through the deets real quick, we're going to talk about Apocalypse the 12, which essentially the biggest trades of it run from September 99 through to roughly February of 2000. Annuals are always so weird to look at the dates on. So Cable 73 through 75 kicked this thing off. Joe Pruitt wrote all of them. We've got pencils from Rob Liefeld, Bernard Chang, Larry Strucker, and John Holdridge on inks, Optic Studios and Gloria Vasquez on colors, plus Richard Starkings and Saida Timofonte on letters. Uncanny 376 is the first Uncanny. That's got Alan Davis and Terry Cavanaugh, Roger Cruz, Matt Banning, Andy Owens, Jimmy Palmiotti, Chris Dickey and Liquid over on colors, plus Starkings and Albert Deschênes on letters. We're going to move on from there to X-Man 59 and 60. That's going to be Terry Cavanaugh doing some more writing. We've got Mike Miller and Ben Herrera, Bud LaRosa, Scott Koblish, Mike Thomas, Matt Hicks, Richard Starkings, and Jason Levine. From there, let's take a look at some X-Men books. We got X-Men 96 and 97, Alan Davis and Terry Cavanaugh doing some heavy lifting yet again. We've got Alan Davis doing the art as well with with Mark Farmer, Marie Javins, Richard Starkings, and again, Saida Timofonte. Wolverine 146, 147, for some reason, back-to-back. They don't even belong here. We're going to get into it. But Fabian Nicieza, Eric Larson, Mike Miller, Roger Cruz, Amanda Dorothy, Nathan Massengill, Mike Christian, Andy Owens, Marie Javins, Wilson Ramos. Richard Starkings, occasionally credited as RS. This is one of those instances with additional help from Comic Craft and Wes Abbott. Uncanny 377, again, Davis, Kavanaugh, Tom Ranney, got Scott Hanna, Brian Haberlin, and then again, Starkings and Saida Timofonte. Some of these people just get to do so many cool things, right? We've got the team from Cable 74 doing Cable 76 again. That's Pruitt, Chang, Holdridge, Miller, Starkings, and Timofonte. X-Men 97, which is Davis, Kavanaugh, Farmer, O'Leaf, Starkings, and Levine. And for those of you who did catch it, there is also Uncanny X-Men Annual 99. This is a weird one. It's got Ben Rabb, Anthony Williams, Troy Hobbs, Scott Koblish, color graphics, and John Babcock. It's not actually contained in any of the trades like proper, but it sometimes is. It's hard to even figure out. Ages of Apocalypse has similar creative credits. We've got Uncanny 378, which is Davis, Kavanaugh, Adam Kubert, Graham Nolan, Tim Townsend, Jimmy Palmiotti, Liquid, Starkings, and Timofonte. Cable 77 coming up in March of 2000 with Pruitt, Chang, Owens, Ramos, Hi-Fi Design on colors, Starkings, and Timofonte. Wolverine 148, Larson, Cruz, Owens, Ramos, and Oscar Gongora over on letters. X-Men Unlimited 26. I don't even know what to do about X-Men Unlimited anymore sometimes. I have such an angry reaction to it. Pruitt, our inker is going to be Sal Regla, Rick Ketchum, and Scott Koblish with colors from Hicks and Jessica Ruffner. And then letters from Sharp Font, interesting, and Paul Tutrone, plus a backup by Matt Nixon, Toby Cypress, an uncredited inker, Joe Rosas, and then Sharp Font and Tutrone again. X-Men 98 is Davis, Farmer, Javins, and Starkings, bringing us to Powerless. Now, there's only 6 total issues in Powerless. I think we're going to really talk about like 4 or 5 of them, but just the whole Powerless run is Uncanny 379, Cable 78, X-Force 101, Wolverine 149, X-Men 99, and Uncanny 380. And they're all kind of referenced in the pages of X-Men 99 one way or another. For Uncanny, Davis, Ranney, Hannah, Liquid, Brian Haberlin, and Saida Timofonte. Cable, Pruitt, Ryan, Andrew Pepoy, Gloria Vasquez, and Starkings. For X-Force 101, for those of you who looked at it, found it, because it's kind of not in all of the regular collections, we've got Joseph Harris, Steve Harris, Rick Ketchum, Matt Hicks, and Chris Eliopoulos. Hey, what's up, my Greek brother? For Wolverine 149, Larson, Nolan, Palmiotti, Javins, Comic Craft, X-Men 99, and Uncanny 380 both have writing by Alan Davis and Terry Kavanaugh. X-Men 380 has pencils by Tom Rainey. Inks on the 2 books are Regla and Hannah. Colors on the 2 books are Hi-Fi and Brian Haberlin. And then we've got Richard Starkings and Saida Timofonte. And man, oh man, this is a lot of books. But it's a lot of books with not that much going on, if you ask me. I really feel like this is the point where we hit diminishing returns on how long the 12 is. You know, it's not even like it's the 12 issues. It's like just the 12.
There will go on to, I mean, there have already been a bunch of major crossovers that are bigger. There will go on to be a bunch of major crossovers that are bigger. This feels like it should be the biggest one they have done yet, because it is, in theory, the culmination of storylines going back to the original X Factor, so going back to the 80s, which in 1999 is a big deal. Onslaught was storylines going back to technically the 60s, but really Onslaught was going back to the early 90s at most, with the erasure of Magneto's mind and with the idea of the traitor who is not Lisa Rinna. But there's also this reference to Ages of Apocalypse, which feels like it would be the sequel to Age of Apocalypse, which was huge. And then ever since then, we've done multiple ages, which were all pretty big deal events. The theory involved in why you would write this storyline is so huge. And if you asked me to pitch this at any time, I could pull elements that would make this a 2-year-long lead up, a year-long event that was the 12, and then a months-long every issue is erased and we do Ages of Apocalypse. This is like 1 or 2 issue lead ups. And I mean, like the lead up, there's like little seeds of the lead up and all the stuff that we've been reading, but they're really, really small and subtle. And even those are like 6 months in the past, 6 issues back. We started less than that. We found Destiny's Diary where she mentions the 12. There's been a couple other little things. Then each of the series that we're talking about has like 1 or 2 issues that are the 12, and then 1 or 2 issues that are Ages of Apocalypse. And that's it. And it's weird because what is written doesn't feel like enough story to fill up that small an amount of book space. So there's a big part of me that's like, this could have been 4 issues total. This could have just been like a 4-issue series called, X-Men Apocalypse the 12. And then, maybe a 1 or 2 issue like Alpha Omega thing that was Ages of Apocalypse. And that could have been it. You could have done this in under 6 issues really easily. But what I'm talking about is what's written. What as the plot as written could have been done in 4 to 6 issues, no problem. The concept should have been like 24 to 48 issues, honestly, to me.
Well, it does seem to include all of that if you wanted to do a genuine The 12 read. It kicks off in X Factor 13 and 14, where the members of the Apocalypse, the 12 crew, should be Cyclops, Franklin Richards, Jean Grey, Storm, and Apocalypse himself, because at that point it's just the 12, not yet Apocalypse the 12. We then find out that it should also include Danny Moonstar, Cannonball, and Psylocke. Sure. Iceman should be there, as well as Beast and Angel. Cable at one point is mentioned to finally be a member of the 12, before finally we get our actual 12: Cyclops, Phoenix, Storm, Magneto, Polaris, Living Monolith, Bishop, Cable, Xavier, Iceman, Mikhail Rasputin, and Sunfire. And when we get to it, the way that they are the 12 is the most... It is Bugs Bunny throwing a black circle on the ground and jumping into it like a hole, finding a way to make it work, kind of manipulation of storytelling.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't have said that much better myself.
Oh my God, Jean Grey is the fucking Phoenix, and you're telling me her part in the 12 is the mom? I cannot. So, okay, this Cable opening, I genuinely do not like any of the art in the Liefeld issues, actually. And, we had a little bit of a backstage discussion where I don't know if you're going to maybe defend it or say that we've read worse. Either one is fine. But, like, literally the colorist is doing a lot of the work here.
What I was going to say is it is not his worst work.
Okay, that's really fair, too.
There are a lot of... The cover has 2 completely rendered feet in it. So for everybody who says he can't do it, I mean, there's boots on them. I'm sure the man cannot draw a full set of toes. We know he can't do teeth, so I think toes is fair to say it's out at the door. But there are 2 booted feet that are fully shaped in a pair of boots. So he can do it, guys. He really can. There are a bunch of times where everybody's sizes are just normal comics big, and the women,
especially that X-Force splash in the issue 73.
Yeah, exactly. And the women's waists are like normal, horrifyingly small, not like literally where would organs go. This is madness. This goes into body horror territory. So like, for a man who should be brought up on artistic war crimes, I struggle to recall a lot of other things.
Okay, yeah.
That I genuinely like the Bernard Chang that I can say about it. Like, I mean, it's not great art, but at least everything's like relatively normal. Like, at least he's being like kind of cool.
I love the cartooniness of it. I love
that's where we just fully disagree.
So full of like comic levity in a storyline that I just think is too ridiculous.
I love his artwork. Listen, little secret, guys. A lot of times I'm very nice about an artist's artwork. And very nice isn't fair, but I try and always be really respectful. Because again, it just takes a lot of work to make art, and I don't do it. And so I have no right to insult people. But I do look at it and think it's bad. Like, if I was not on a comics podcast and I was just talking to Nico, I would still acknowledge that, like, I technically couldn't do it, but I would call it ugly and say it's bad. And when I get on the show, I go like, I don't think it's a great fit. I'm not always doing that. I'm not going to tell you who I'm doing it to and who I'm not doing it to. If you want my
opinion on that, though,
but there are a lot of times where I would
who had
really
an opinion about Mariah Carey could hit a G7. You know what I mean? Like, you should give yourself a little bit of grace.
The thing that I can often say, even when I legitimately do think stuff is bad, is the thing that I will often say is it absolutely did not resonate with me. And I do feel that that is often the case with artists who I think, their work is totally good and just doesn't resonate with me. Bernard Chang, the art really does not resonate with me. But I do think it kept looking at it thinking, I can imagine so many places, like I would love for him to draw ecstatics. There's so many places where I would love for him to be
love
drawing. That. I think he is a really good artist. I really do like the style. I think it is for what we're at and what we're doing here. And the one thing I will say, like, I see what you're saying and I agree in a lot of ways is this is so absurd and like this story is so like broadly not great that what the fuck ever, let's just let this guy do his thing. Like, what is this gonna make it better? No. He's certainly not bringing it down. Yes, and so exactly. Let him do his thing. But yeah, the dramatic shift between the two is ill-advised. And there's a big part of me that's like, well, then take Liefeld off. If we can't have a dramatic shift, kick Liefeld off. I know that was absolutely not what's going to happen in 1999, but I'm okay with it. The shift between the two is rough. And then, for me, just I had a little trouble getting into Mr. Bernard Chang's art for these Cable issues.
Now, okay, so Caliban is introduced as our first horseman, though there's another horseman introduced right away. So Caliban is Pestilence.
Well, no, so we already have Death. Yeah.
Right, we have Death, which is Wolverine, but I almost feel like he's pre-introduced, and then he doesn't really play the role of Death throughout this arc. So I think I'm coming a little biased having read it. So you're totally right. We get Death first, then we get Caliban Pestilence, then we get Deathbird War. So Deathbird is not Death, she's War. Fine. Caliban's Pestilence is like psychic, which I kind of love. But what I will say is, having just kind of like scrolled through some of the X-Force issues from around this time that I'd been reading, this X-Force arc and like the way I've read all of Joe Pruitt's, like, it's 8 issues. I've read all of Joe Pruitt's Cable, and like his writing isn't really like this, but like all of the girls are just like, and they're girls in this, are like, Daddy Cable, and just like throw themselves on top of him, and in an avuncular way, but like a funny uncle. And like it's the balance between Cable and X-Force in these issues is not for me. The fact that the whole team is just like, well, Cable, you're here, so you're in charge. Bonkers. It is like,
solve our problems, Dad.
He is Mr. Belding, and they are the Bayside kids. It really feels like when Liefeld says he wants to do something, they just let him. And that will continue for 15, 20 more years at Marvel. But man, oh man, I really struggled with these Cable and X-Force appearances.
I think that's really reasonable. I felt similarly. I mean, like, it's weird because this team started off as the New Mutants. They became X-Force.
Yeah.
The kids are a family. Cable was the leader of the family for a while. Those is the Wet Works team for the X-Men. That's not so much the case in this first run. When the New Mutants become X-Force, they more become, a paramilitary squad led by this guy who's going to teach them to be harder than the X-Men normally get taught to be.
With a lot of religious mythology running around in the background.
Very quickly, it becomes, we're doing the hard jobs that the X-Men aren't going to do. We're encountering the ugly stuff that the X-Men aren't going to do. And then that carries on, because every time X-Force comes up after that, it is the X-Men can't kill, you guys are the Wet Works team. How do we come up with the idea that X-Force is going to be that? Well, because that's really what they were. The New Mutants are a family, and it's something that, like, it's such a disconnect for me a lot of the time, because my teens were Generation X, who are not a family. They are a bunch of best friends who went to high school together, which is cool, but it's really funny because I went to a very small, incestuous lower school, middle school, high school. I went to a private school with a very, very small graduating class, and those kids were like my family. I know too much about them. I know more about most of the kids that I graduated with. There's not one kid that I graduated with that I don't know a very intimate fact about. Let's put it that way. And so I should vibe with the New Mutants a lot more, because they are the same way. They just know too much about each other. They are all brothers and sisters. They grew up together. They went through everything together. They're a family. And Cable Cable is just not their dad. He's a member of the team, but he's not really a member of the family. And they do love him, and they try to love him, and they look out for him, and they want the best for him, and he wants the best for them. But he got to them after the kids were already a family. And he's pretty hard on them. And he is bordering on abusive towards Sam because he's trying to make Sam as hard as humanly possible because Sam is the leader of the team. And Sam is really hurt by that a lot of the time, but appreciates it. And it does make him a leader that can allow X-Force to do things that they couldn't necessarily do if they were X-Men. But Sam doesn't really like Cable a ton. And I think by this point isn't super, thank God you're here.
Yeah, in fact, that it's here is so weird.
If it had just been Tabby, if it had just been Boom Boom, it still doesn't, like, the voice still doesn't ring right. Her being so happy doesn't ring right. But I don't know. I'll let it. I could let that slide. She's just really happy to see it. Well, for whatever, she's crazy. She's got big emotions. She's got a lot of big emotions. She's all over the place.
She started out in Secret Wars Volume 2. She's got beyond her damage.
If she were just to leap up from the couch and be really happy to see Cable, sure. But that they're all like, Jesse Bedlam, you don't know this, but we're all going to be okay now. Especially when they're just sitting on the couch doing nothing anyway. And then Cable comes in and is like, I love you all so much. You are my family. I love you, family. I actually am completely not going to be helpful. And I'm just bringing more trouble to your doorstep. Like, you guys were actually fine. And I'm just making things worse.
It is, what kind of Dom Tutoro nonsense is this? Like, it is, without fail, one of the most ridiculous situations, and it's not made better by the battle against Caliban, Carabiner, whatever you want to call him. But then, for me, Cable 75 presents an obnoxious number of splash pages with minimal background details. And it's Cable versus Wolverine.
Oh, yeah.
And Cable kind of gets the upper hand. And, like, you can still see Marvel editorial being like, I don't know that Cable should be able to kill Wolverine. So he kind of beats him by accident. And then it's Cable versus Apocalypse. And, like Agent Graves choosing to lose to Brother Lono, he just doesn't finish Apocalypse off, so Apocalypse immediately beats him. I thought that, really, truly, because I don't know that you can compare Cable versus Apocalypse to a lot of things other than 100 bullets, but, like, I really thought that Cable 75 represented upper echelon sitcom logic in, like, a James Bond. It was just not the right move for the right moment. Up to this point, the Casey run, Casey and Ladron, they had been working toward, Cable understood his mission in life was kill Apocalypse. I mean, literally, it is the point of the entire run that precedes this. Joe Pruitt has 8 issues. I think he's even got a fill-in for one of them. And he's like, I don't think I gotta kill Apocalypse right now. Are you fucking kidding me? No, you kill Apocalypse. Just like if you order a pizza and they deliver that pizza, you eat that pizza. Like, ugh.
It's also tough because they want this to be a Cable versus Wolverine issue too, which is, like, kind of a big enough deal that that's its own issue. Like, you can't have them both. I mean, like, you can absolutely have them both, but then there's zero impact to either. Like, they cancel each other out. Because if he's beating Wolverine souped up as death, if he's having that fight,
amen,
that's the whole, I mean, like, then going to Apocalypse,
yep,
it just takes all the weight. Like, I stop immediately being interested in the Wolverine fight as soon as Apocalypse shows up. And while he's fighting Apocalypse, I'm thinking, like, he was already fighting Wolverine. And then there's not enough time or page space for both. Part of me wants to say I appreciate the character growth of Cable saying, I surrender because I'm not going to let you kill Caliban because I love him and he's family. But you're right. If they wanted to stop the fight and have Cable in some way say, I will not proceed because I don't want you to kill Caliban.
Again, Dom Tutoro, got it.
You need to write something better. Like, he has a little bit of like I'm just going to hope that the X-Men show up. And what I really would have liked is for him to have said to X-Force, they're going to try and weaponize Caliban against me. If they do that, here's plan B, like go get the X-Men, something where you know, he says like I can have it all, you know, he can have his Liz Lemon moment, I can have family and I can have people that I love, and I can decide that I'm not going to let people die for my cause of do anything to kill Apocalypse. When I say do anything, I don't really mean do anything, I mean have the best plan possible so that I don't have to kill my friends. I can believe that, I can buy that. Show me the plan and write it so that Cable says I was never going to let you do this, I always had a backup plan. He really does not have a back. His backup plan is I hope my dad shows up.
Yeah, and oh man, and truly, while Cable is working on the night cheese, one of the things that I love and hate more than I can put into words. So I've made it no secret. I think Terry Cavanaugh is very talented. I do not love his X-Man run, and he writes such a bulk of X-Man. X-Man 59 like picks up like right after Cable 75 in some runs, some read orders. Whether you use Marvel Fandom or you use CMRO, of course, the Complete Marvel Reading Order by Travis Starnes, you run a risk of like running afoul of another reading order, right? And so that's something you kind of got to deal with, how you want to put this together. It's a little bit up to you. It's a little choose your own adventure. Did you happen to read X-Man 59?
Yeah.
Okay. The homoerotic moment between Nate, Johnny, and Ben in the shower is worth its weight in latinum. Everybody please go out and watch Starfleet Academy. I just want to see it get the numbers. I want to see it get renewed. This is one of the most exciting captains I've ever seen. Like, for those of you who know me, this is a Cisco moment. This is that level of, are you kidding me? So please give it the numbers, give it the love. It's really something special. It really is Starfleet the OC. But this is 22 pages that should have been 8 pages in an Unlimited. There should have been an Unlimited that gathered together a bunch of these things in 3 8-page installments. Hell, make it 40 pages. I'll give you 5 installments. You can pull 5 characters together. This was not great. I did not love this. I love getting Franklin and Val. Again, everybody owes Chris Claremont Valeria. She is a gift. And other than I think Nate would do a really good job making Johnny see stars, I just thought this whole issue was 8 pages. Just let Caliban abduct X-Man really quickly after the Cable fight.
First off,
I don't know.
It is hilarious that Nate Gray has homoerotic relationships with Peter Parker and Johnny Storm, who also have a homoerotic relationship with each other.
I just winked for everyone.
This is my favorite throuple. Jean, Scott, and Wolverine have been replaced. It is now Nate Gray, Johnny Storm, and Spider-Man.
Really, all they need is you.
Well, then it's a quad. I don't know. The wheels come off the wagon there. I think it's, it's got to be a tricycle for it to work out.
For the record, guys, if there's dead silence, I'm just agreeing with TK. You can't all see it, but I'm just nodding.
There you go. Yeah, I mean, it's also a wasted opportunity because there's 4 horsemen. We get too much Caliban because he's so obsessed with Cable, and the X-Force is so obsessed with him. We get too much Deathbird because she's
perfect and hot and wonderful.
Yeah, but she had a run up into this with Bishop.
Yeah.
She's really loud and annoying.
She's perfect.
In a great way. I mean, like, that's part of her power set.
She's Shi'ar Paris Geller.
Nobody writes her like that, but they should. Tie your tubes, moron, would be a really good Deathbird line.
the Dragon or whatever.
So she's already in there. Of course, we got so much Wolverine as death. We are missing one, and he's a pretty good, scary one. That's Famine. That's Ahab, a pretty solid X-Men villain.
He was going to be Cable originally.
Who has been very megalomaniacal and very scary, and is in this. He's Famine. He shows up. Every other horseman gets a chance to collect someone and do something on their own. And Famine shows up one time with Deathbird and isn't super helpful, and then gets rendered completely differently the next time he shows up, which is very odd. Yeah, I don't know. This would have been. This is not a great set of issues for Nate. He's not one of the 12. He's supposed to be the new body that Apocalypse is taking. In some ways, that means that he's like kind of more powerful than everyone. He's a huge linchpin of this whole thing. It's not going to work if they don't have a body that can hold all this energy. So he's hugely important. And the whole point is he's hugely powerful. That's why Apocalypse wants him. It just sort of feels like Caliban is not beating him.
Yeah, this is an unreasonable matchup. It's not the battle of the century.
Everything about Nate sucks because, I mean, he's me. I love him so much, but like, I'm going there, talking about it. King Tom Brevoort and his goddamn Substack talking about how they really backburnered Jean. She really wasn't in Age of Revelation at all, and she's really not showing up for much of what's to come because she's so OP, they can't figure out what to do with her. And I have a lot of problems with Tom Brevoort. So I will say, I think it's because he's not great at his job if he can't sit at a summit with his team and figure out how to make this work with Jean. And I'm going to flash us all the way back to Nate, who I feel like nobody sat and had the summit either, but they just wrote it anyway. I mean, like, if the choice is do what you did with Nate or leave the character out of the books at all, I do think leave the character out of the books at all is the better choice. But you can't send this person around all the time going, God, they're so insanely powerful. This is the most powerful mutant we've ever seen. This is a mutant like no other. This is, Cable with the promise of all his powers. He's so insanely powerful. And then not write godlike stories for this person all the time. Have him get bitch slapped by a Morlock who's scared of his own shadow, even powered up. I'm sorry. It's just nothing.
Yeah, no. Caliban on Tren is still not X-Man level.
Yeah, and so it's so often a mismatch for poor Nate, where like they just can't stop talking about how powerful he is, and then it comes to a moment where it's like a level C class telepath would be completely fine to handle this. Like, this is picking up a couple boxes with your telekinesis, and they're just like, you can't do this. This is a real challenge for our boy here. There's no reason behind it. I find it very unfortunate, and they have talked up Jean so much that I get that they're having a lot of trouble figuring out what to do with her. I really do think you can figure it out. It's not that hard. It's comics. You are basically allowed to do whatever you want. And so I think being like, yeah, we wrote ourselves into a corner is a little weird, but it's also interesting to see the corner that people write themselves into in the character of X-Man.
And it's so funny because one of the things that really stuck out to me here was that she, because now we're talking about Jean, is that he doesn't actually play an active role in anything about Apocalypse the 12. It's part of what made me so happy about reading Mutant X and, throwing together that bonus episode, because...
Hold on, I just got to pause real quick. While I was rambling, Nico pitched an idea in our background Discord for what you would do with Jean that works perfect. This is exactly what I'm saying. This is a 5-second meeting. Like, the idea that you would get on your Substack and go like, yeah, the reason why you're not seeing Jean, it's just so... What could we do? You could sit and listen to one podcast by an X-Men fan for 5 seconds and we'll pitch an idea. I can't even. Anyway, continue.
And right, wouldn't that be I would want to write one book and have you write the other book. Like, that would be it, right? The thing that really blows my mind is, so like in Mutant X, Nate just sort of appears for literally like 8 panels altogether across 3 issues, and he's just Sinister's X-Man who keeps some people in a bubble. Fine. You could take this idea of not Cable and make it something so removed and so silly and so inferior. And at the same time, I feel like that's what Kavanaugh does, while he's supposed to be trumpeting the idea that X-Man is a hero and is this thing. He almost suffers from Colossus syndrome. Colossus is so big and so strong and so identifiable visually that we have trouble seeing Colossus as anything more than the stamp of who he is. It's kind of the same thing for X-Man. At first it's the streak, then it's the streak and the unbelievably sexy chest tattoo. And he's just so powerful that you have no idea what to do with him. But you do. You find human ways to express this big idea. You find ways to tell this story because there are characters like Wolverine. When people say that Wolverine doesn't care about the little guy, he doesn't have feelings, I'm always like, then I don't think you're reading Wolverine. Wolverine is actually the most sentimental person you know. You find a way to write him. I think if people started seeing the largesse of X-Man's powers as the largesse of Wolverine's personality, of his dynamic relationship with everything around him, you would see more use of that. Like, I know it's easier to play a song in the key of C than it is to play a song in the key of B flat, but B flat is still a beautiful key and you should still play in it. And just because it's not the same note for note idea doesn't mean that the parallel doesn't exist. And so I think you're really right. I think you're like specifically onto something. It's the fear of big power. It's the fear of power that isn't the identifiable old white identity. Because for all intents and purposes, X-Man could be Cable's son. He's not, but he could be. That holds people back from utilizing this character and from exploring new modalities in OP characterization.
I mean, you know, and I also go to something, I've been thinking a lot about this lately because we've got Daredevil season 2 coming up. You know, Wilson becomes so powerful that it does start to sort of be a problem. It's funny because he has no superpowers, and like a lot of very powerful people could actually just kill him. But if you're a great writer, you figure out ways to write around that so it's just not feasible and not plausible and not happening. But Wilson becomes so powerful, he starts to be a little OP. And then they introduce the Stromwinds, who are so much more powerful than Wilson when it comes to, you know, financial moves and, you know, and power play, you know, people as pawns and all that stuff.
Truly.
And Wilson is reduced to a little boy in their bathroom. And for a character that is riding so high, that is so much fun to love to hate, to watch him just be a villain of the highest magnitude and to get everything he wants, and then to meet these people that just dog walk him in a storyline that is repeating to you over and over again that Wilson's got it all. He's got it completely made. And then with some good writing that doesn't feel implausible, that there's no retcon involved. Like, there are plenty of insanely rich people that none of us know who they are in the real world. Like, there's wealth and power and you don't know who has it. And so it's just not implausible at all that the Stromwinds exist. And they become this real antagonist for Wilson, and they really come off as scary. They are just more powerful than he is, and they just have more money and resources than he does. And it feels like they're going to win. Just nobody ever figures out how to write that for Nate. There's a lot of different, I mean, you can come up with a lot of different ways to do it, but just nobody ever quite does. It is really, as you said, it's kind of a modality of a previous generation's thinking about what an OP character is and how you write them. And it is why I go hard on Brevoort, because he's still part of that generation. You know, he was working when these things were coming out. He was in those writers' rooms. Those were his colleagues. And, you know, he's gone on to continue to work and is now at an editor level position. And when people come to him and are challenged by the idea of OP characters that have become overpowered through sort of organic plot happenings, the response is like, let's just flounder, or let's just like walk away from it. Let us not sit and come up with creative ways to deal with this actually interesting thing that we have come up with.
It's so important that what we're talking about is editorial involvement, because like we said, the 12 started in like 1987. Like, the 12 are old. And so this finally paying off, this finally paying out, it is about editorial involvement getting us there. I feel like what you're saying about kind of holding Nate back and the unfortunate realities of when editors have a certain perspective. I am lucky enough to work with people 30 and 40 years older than me and 20 years younger than me. Sometimes getting the people that are 20 to understand the people that are 70, it takes some amount of building a bridge and talking to your neighbor. I feel like with editorial comics, one of the things you run into is exactly what you're talking about with the Stromwinds being more powerful than the Kingpin. Everybody sees the writer as the Kingpin, but honestly, there's a lot of ways that the editor is the Stromwinds. And there is nothing that I am saying about Mark Powers at this point as editor of the X-Line. But I'm maybe more talking broadly about the identity of how these comics come together. Who said that X-Man can't do something more powerful than Cable in this run? That meant that X-Man had to be less than, so Cable could be more than, while being less than Wolverine, while being less than Apocalypse. It's the thing.
And while you're still repeating over and over again in dialogue, X-Man, you're so powerful, you're literally the only one that could do the job.
Yeah. I completely agree. And it's sort of where I get into Uncanny 376 and X-Men 96, which, by the way, Roger Cruz's pencils on Uncanny 376 are beyond my words. This is one of those situations where Cyclops has like a 48 pack, and I love it. It's perfect. It is what I want to bring tailgating. And the Living Monoliths, I think it is the Living Monolith. Maybe it's one of his followers. It's hard to tell. The Living Monolith isn't a thing. Please go see our coverage of Mutant X. Just calm down. But Rogue looks so right. Gambit looks so right. Even Marrow has like a great look to her. There is something so great about the way this issue looks. And I found myself frustrated with how much we were elevating and de-escalating identities over and over again in this issue, because it was a fascinating study in power politics. You know, there's an article going around that Bruno Mars is releasing his first album in a decade, and every other pop star should be scared. And kind of they mathematically should be. Like, when Bruno Mars drops a record, it breaks records. And honestly, I Just Might is one of the hottest singles I've heard in a very long time. Whether or not I think it's the best song in the world, I know that it's going to be the song of the summer. And it came out in January. That's the power of a Bruno Mars. There are things that are Bruno Mars to a Taylor Swift to a Billie Eilish in the X-Men. And part of what you're playing with here is Mikhail Rasputin. He's kind of like a Fiona Apple. He's going to show up every 10 years and win a bunch of awards and go away. And Kitty is out here doing her damnedest and is so unimportant in this, despite being the backbone of everything going on. There are so many consistent sellers in music who release things and continue to make money and continue to do their thing, but don't break Taylor Swift's records by releasing a record over and over again in the same year, with the shipping date being the reason that she's able to take the #1 spot for a debut. There are so many people out here doing that. And the identity politics, the team dynamic politics of 376 and 96, it made me really realize that this is The Gathering, right? That's the name of issue 96, that immediately follows The Shattering. There is so much to this that is about how we treat teams, that I was mind blown by these two issues, even when I thought both of them had a significant number of countable flaws.
They definitely did have a significant number of countable flaws. I, too, really love the Roger Cruz art. I will say something insane happens in the last 3 pages. I don't know if he just got so insanely rushed.
Oh, that everybody's face is kind of melting?
Yeah, I Googled really hard because I was like, I think these are different pencils. Like, this is somebody else working, and I wasn't even like insult, because like it was kind of interesting style, but I'm like, I don't think this is Roger Cruz because it's so different, and like some of it might even be the inks too, but it's not just the inks. It's so noticeable and so weird. And it's just kind of out of nowhere. Yeah, I mean, this is a really good start to this idea of the 12. And it's sort of the best we're gonna get. I was mistaken, by the way. Famine Ahab does get one solo get, and it's Sunfire.
I love Sunfire, but let's be real. He is the B-list villain getting the B-list hero.
And you're totally right about Kitty. Kitty has some really amazing and important moments throughout this, as does Jubilee. I think one of my biggest disappointments in all this is that Generation X is just completely left out.
Agreed.
To the point, like, I went and read all the issues around this just to even see if anybody said, oh, Banshee took Jubilee and they went to the X-Mansion because they know Wolverine, who died.
Jay Farber wrote it. It's a great run. Everybody should check it out. Monet the Vampire Slayer.
Yes, but that nobody says anything. Yeah, it's right around the 50th issue, I think.
Ooh, the X-Man 2-parter.
Yes. They just don't mention it at all. They don't mention that Jubilee is not gone in the books at any point, but she is here. And, you know, we will later jump to a storyline where she, Kitty, Warren, and Kurt go as a little sub team. And this is where I just sort of live for these two books not being like completely necessary. They both are completely necessary to understand what's happening at any given time. You have to be reading both. And I live for, even though like I started X-Men with the blue and the gold team, and I sort of love the blue and the gold team in their own ways, I also love when there are 22 people in the mansion and just like randomly 5 people will break off and go on a mission, and that'll be an X-Men that month, and then a different group of 6 will break off and go on a mission, and that's Uncanny that month. I love when it's that. But yeah, I mean, these are 2 really solid quality issues. The other thing this really starts to bring up and becomes my whole other thing about just like, I can't believe this time is never referenced. It's crazy to me how crucial the involvement of these Skrulls is in Apocalypse's ascension and in this whole storyline, and that is nothing to do with Secret Invasion.
Yeah.
If I had known this existed, I would have assumed He Loves You was Apocalypse. I would have assumed that the god had something to do with this time. The only time the Skrulls have come to Earth and like done participatory involvement in Earth stuff, not just like trying to invade or fight us, is Apocalypse, who has, celestial technology, and the idea that they would see him as some sort of god. I mean, I get why, maybe in 2000, no, I don't know. I mean, I get why it wasn't happening because Marvel didn't own the rights to the X-Men movies. So that, again, this never comes up in all of the Skrull stuff that we discuss. That this never comes up in all of the Shi'ar stuff that we never discuss, because the Shi'ar are also really involved. And, a former Majestrix, often sister to the Majestrix, like, advisor to Majestrix Xandra, that nobody is ever like, yeah, we have a very specific tie to Apocalypse. It's just, it's a waste for all those times that it could have come up, but also pick it up, guys. The ball's on the ground. Just grab it and run with it.
It's right there. Go get it. It's really funny because as you bring that up, I think about the fact that we are actually going to slink toward an opportunity to talk about Skrulls and Xavier. The fact that the Skrulls are not classically tied to the X-Men isn't necessarily true to canon. One of the things that we talk about a lot is fandom reaction versus what's on the page. Maximum Security has a ton of Skrull interaction with the X-Men. So we are going to talk about that, and maybe hopefully it inspires a little bit of conversation and a little bit of a better understanding of a relationship that is deeply underplayed. But one of the things that I always find interesting about the way the X-Men handles its incredible giant back universe, back catalog, all of that, is that we actually have a good guy Skrull here. There is a good guy Skrull helping the X-Men in this weird arc. And it's not that the Skrulls aren't important, it's that Eric is more important. And so we get Magneto showing up. It's that Peter is more important despite not being one of the 12. It's that Moira wielding a machine gun is really important because she did in her first appearance in X-Men, 97, 96? So it's actually the same. I think it's the same number for a different series. That's why we call her Machine Gun Moira. It's so hard to think sometimes about how big the X-Men have become. And having a good guy Skrull helping out, contributing to the X-Men's success is so important. And just, I really want to echo your sentiment on that Generation X wasn't given the respect it deserves. You've got Jubilee at points in a Generation X uniform, and there's like no reference to Generation X. It's just sort of like, oh, X-Men writers love Jubilee, so we're going to borrow her. Oh, okay, sure. And it's that kind of canon back and forth that winds up getting us a little stuck later on. We're going to move into a really cool new era of the show after this, and there's periods where like new X-Men can't show up for 2 months of our coverage because for those 2 months, it was held in stasis by the fact that Grant Morrison was playing out an opus where there's no break. So any appearance of Cyclops has to come either before or after it. And I feel like that's kind of something that happened to Generation X a lot. Jubilee was such an important chess piece in so many of these writers' games that she just kind of winds up being the thing that holds Generation X in stasis.
Yeah, and it's a bummer that nobody gets to graduate from Generation X or, exit in any way other than death. They never quite knew what to do with that book. Even though it had a great run, it just never quite fit into the bigger X picture.
I do just want to give Fizz the Skrull his unbelievable due. We love us some Fizz.
Yeah, we love Fizz.
What I don't love, Wolverine 146, 147. Having gone back and reread it, the Erik Larsen run is kind of marvelous. There's a lot of really cool things about it. 146 and 147 are not issues of Wolverine. They are an issue of X-Men and then an Angel one-shot.
Also an issue of X-Men. They're both issues of X. Yeah, and or an Angel one-shot. Yeah. 100%.
Yeah, it could be 2 issues of X-Men or one issue of X-Men and one Angel one-shot.
Which honestly, by the way, for Apocalypse the 12 would be appropriate, even though Angel's not one of the 12.
Oh, yeah.
He's the first one that Apocalypse fucks with.
I just need to say, for those of you who are looking back and going, oh, is that Candy Southern?
No.
It's not. She's already
He's completely dead. Techno-organic Candy's dead. Just some Erik Larsen thought he was being cute.
Techno-organic Candy sounds delicious.
Truly. I hear Doug loves it. These are not Wolverine issues. I mean, I did the 146, okay, sure, because the team is going after Wolverine. He is the primary antagonist. We flip things on their head a little bit by having that be the case. But this is, it's really funny. This is a better version. It's less encompassing of the entire group of X-Men, but it's a better version of X-Men Unlimited 25, where everybody sits around and just remembers what they loved about Wolverine, who they believe to be dead. They do not yet realize that he is death, not dead. And everybody sits and has a sepia-toned memory of how much they loved Wolverine. We get a bunch more of that here. We get it from Betsy, we get it from Jubilee, we get it from Kitty. We get it from all of them, and they're better written, they're more intimate, they're more important, and they're tied to action, not just like action meaning fighting, which there is, but action like the team doing something. They're not all sitting around the mansion. And don't get me wrong, I'm somebody who loves a sitting around the mansion talking issue. One of my favorite issues of comics of all time is X Factor in Therapy with Doc Samson. Literally nothing happens. There's no fighting. They are sitting in therapy. It's one of my favorite issues of all time. And so I love that, but sometimes it's not well written and it doesn't work and it's not good, which is what that X-Men Unlimited was. This, in a lot of ways really works. I really respect Erik Larsen for having this much of a beat on a bunch of characters that he's not really writing. It is more about them than it is about Wolverine in a book called Wolverine. I don't know, not the worst transgression of all time, but awkward, weird. And then 147 is fully just a book about Angel. And again, appropriate that there would be a book about Angel in this, in a story about Apocalypse's ascension. Very appropriate, but weird that it's Wolverine who doesn't, he's in it, Wolverine's in the book, but he doesn't help Angel with this transition that he's going through very much. He just kind of keeps making things worse and like following Angel around.
Yeah, he does not add anything to this issue, which is essentially about Angel finding Abraham Kiros, who was one of the original Horsemen, and like curing him of his paralysis, which not even a Wolverine character. Like, not, I don't know. This was so much of what we're talking about is about understanding how a line works, not how a run works. We are used to run era. This is line era, where the line is more important than the run. And yep, I feel like in many ways, Wolverine's 2 issues of this and his greater 3 issues of this, because 175 are more about facilitating this crossover than they are about Wolverine getting his fair shake in Apocalypse the 12, where obviously he is not one of the 12 unless it's his healing factor is so amazing that that's what Apocalypse needed, in which case fine. But obviously Apocalypse wasn't like those claws, you know what I mean? I just feel at times like these issues were not used well.
Agree. I mean, I do agree. These issues of Wolverine weren't used well. These issues of comics were used well. It's just tough to situate them and figure out what to do with them.
Now, did you read X-Man 60, the issue where X-Man is inexplicably in an alternate timeline where he's a little bit Caliban, a little bit X-Man, a whole lot of Ghost, maybe a little bit dyslexic?
Yeah, this issue makes no sense and doesn't belong here, and gives us nothing when it comes to the acquisition of Nate and pulling Nate into the 12.
I hate this issue. It is a humongous waste of time, and it's why I don't love the Kavanaugh era. It has nothing to do with Terry Kavanaugh's ability to write and everything to do with the stasis that they're just holding X-Man in. The less said about this issue, the better for everyone involved.
Yep, I couldn't agree more.
However, Uncanny 377, we finally get why everyone is in the 12, and it doesn't make it better. We have the Monolith is the core, Magneto and Polaris are the magnetic poles, Iceman, Storm, and Sunfire are the elements. Cyclops, Phoenix, and Cable are the family. Oh my god, what is this? Encanto. We have Bishop, who comes back from Bishop the Last X-Man. Please see our bonus. And Metcalf, Rasputin are time and space. Fuck you. We have Xavier is the power of pure thought. Oh, okay. And then we have Nate is the new host of Apocalypse. I did not realize the 12 were a 13 and that everybody was so cast.
This battle should be a siege that takes a really long time.
Oh yeah.
This should be multiple issues. They should have better reasons for why everybody gets caught through stupid trickery. Apocalypse is so worried about how capable these teams are, and everybody gets caught through the stupidest bamboozling of all time. And I don't, it's a bummer, and I don't know what to do with it.
It makes it kind of hard to understand how these are the 12. If they're so like ho-de-do, like how are they the 12? And there's stuff like Astra and Joseph show up somehow.
Yeah, those are Skrulls that are there to do the trick. And that Magneto, I mean, like Astra's still alive.
Yeah.
But they all know Joseph is dead. If Joseph is there, there's no reason to engage with that thing when you know that Apocalypse is after you and a ghost has just shown up. That's immediately where everybody pulls. Also, because they're also aware that there are traitors and like people in the mix who might not be who they say they are. So when somebody shows up specifically who is dead, that people aren't immediately like, oh, that is the same thing as, and this is why, because they have a device that they're like, this will allow us to weed out anybody who isn't who they say they are. The device, by the way, fails them for some reason. Like, with no explanation, the device doesn't work because Sam is right in the vicinity of it and is a Skrull. So, it's just, there's so much about this that doesn't work and doesn't make any sense, and it should be longer. I will say generously, if they had known who Apocalypse was going to be on Krakoa, this could really have worked, because the way he talks about it is like the 12 are preordained by nature to be the necessary ingredients. Like these are fundamental things, but like that doesn't make any sense.
Yes.
Like the elements aren't fire, ice, and weather, like all kinds of weather. Like those are not the elements. And so the idea that like storm is a necessary, fire, if he was collecting a bunch of opposites, fire and ice, sure, that makes a lot of sense. But then what is Storm doing there?
You should have grabbed Richter.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, the geological and the meteorological, sure. Like there's, that's brilliant. But this is just like, this feels like a pretty random. Also, like that it's living Monolith because he kind of has Havoc's powers, but Havoc is not there because he's a Summers. He's there because he can channel Apocalypse's powers, but Havoc's powers are just basically Cyclops' powers out of his chest rather than out of his eyes. So, but when we meet Apocalypse in Krakoa and he knows mutant magic and he knows about mutant circuits, If this was a spell that he had created specifically, then it's like, the mutant wizard decided to use these mutants for power, for this circuit, for this spell. This might be ill-advised. Like, Irene says they have to, there's this real note of like, again, this is like, these are universal constants that he's just collecting. And it would read so much better if it was just like, I might not be right, but this is my last chance. I'm the strongest, but I'm still fallible. Like every person who is fighting to be the fittest is not guaranteed to be the fittest. You fight every time and you might lose and you might be wrong. The only thing that I have done is succeed up until now.
See the Olympics.
Blammo. It's kind of like Nate. Like Apocalypse is so overpowered and yet nobody can write him with any kind of nuance. Nobody quite knows what to do with him. He has these absurd monologues. Why do you want the fittest to survive? I really did appreciate that, part of Krakoa and part of Apocalypse on Krakoa was having some explanation for why he wanted to be the fittest. This era makes me bummed out about Krakoa because this was one of the most important Apocalypse storylines of all time. And he can't stop talking about how he was born in Egypt 5,000 years ago. And that does not jive with the timeline we get on Krakoa. And they just nobody wrote in why he thinks that. Like, this is perfect time for somebody to have amnesia. How could Apocalypse have done all of the stuff that he did, had the wife that he had and all that stuff, and still been En Sabah Nur? You guys should have had an explanation for that. And you also should have talked about the 12 and what he was doing there. I think there are like minor references to it, but this is, I don't know, this could be really interesting. It's just so confused and nobody is well written. So it just doesn't, the Alan Davis art is great.
It's fun, but I feel like after Roger Cruz draws, Cyclops as Mr. Olympia, seeing him as like a men's classic is a little funny, but I appreciate it. Now, did you have a positive relationship with Cable 76? Because I think I do. I think Cable 76 provides something that is a little tough to get out of a Cable book, which is a holistic look at what is an ugly canosity. Like, Cable is a mess at best. He was never meant to be that child. Then he was also meant to be Ahab and Cannonball, and he wasn't those. He was never meant to be a messiah, and he became that. Like, I think this was a good way to try and approach a big idea smoothly.
Yeah, I really did like this. I like when everybody sits around and talks about their feelings. It's sort of like the Wolverine issues. This feels very important, but it also feels like, why is it here? They keep saying to Madeline in this issue, like, if you can do this, help us. And she's like, no, I can't. Like, I am able to completely break through these like nullifying spheres that you're all stuck in to pull you into visions. But I literally can't do anything else. I can't help you in any way. I can't connect to Jean and boost her power. I can't do anything, which it just feels a little bit not. If you're going to keep talking about it, if you keep pointing to it, I, as the reader, am just going like, it just sort of feels like you're saying it's happening because I, the writer, want it to happen. And when you point to the reasons why it couldn't or shouldn't be happening, don't do that to yourself. This is where the Bernard Chang art works, but this is the issue where the Bernard Chang art works best for me. I will definitely say that. It's beautiful. It's really sad. I
definitely agree.
Again, I flash to Krakoa, to Dark Web, where such a huge part of Dark Web is Madeline is upset that Jean has all the memories of what little time they got with baby Nathan, and she wants that.
Yeah.
And Nathan, who is around at the time, is not in Dark Web at all, and has for one thing, the terrible idea that Madeline is fighting Jean for the memories, but then never reaches out to Cable or Kid Cable. I guess, well, no. Kid Cable's still around when Madeline's around. And that she never reaches out to either of them. That, Jean, as part of like really trying to heal things with Madeline, is never like, let's get you in a room with Cable. It's really funny the way these two eras reflect each other and show both each other's strengths and deficiencies. But no, I really did love this issue. It's beautiful.
One of the things that I thought was so interesting about it was this was the point where maybe Cyclops' destiny was coming into focus. I feel like Cyclops is barely in the first few issues of this run, even though they have him have these big, beautiful pages and he has these amazing moments where he's visually so well rendered. One of the things that really stands out to me about this era is that Cyclops is just old faithful. Nobody is going, oh man, Cyclops, what does he think about the fate of the X-Men? They're just saying, oh, Cyclops is here, sure. Ask Kitty, she's one of the kids. Ask Storm, she's the mother. Nobody is turning to Cyclops and saying, hey, you're the father, what's going on with you? And I feel like that's part of what's maybe holding down this arc for me. I would love to see Cyclops elevated to the role that they gave Cable, but at no point do they give Cyclops an issue just to have feelings. They give Warren an issue just to have feelings, but nobody puts Apocalypse in Warren, you know what I mean? So it's a little uneven. I also want to just kind of point out there that there are 2 issues that are kind of certainly not collected in any trade. I believe they're collected in the Omnibus edition, but they are not collected in the trade. And that's going to be X-51 Machine Man number 7 and Uncanny Annual number 9. Both of these serve to pretty much just have the X-Men have a mission during the middle of all of this drama. Though, of note, the annual has the X-Men face off against the High Evolutionary, which is kind of significant because he will come up later this episode. So I'm grateful for that, but for the most part, I do feel like they kind of wasted these 2 issues. Neither one of them has anything to do with the 12. And so I'm really glad that neither one of them is really a part of the read, a part of the run. If you happen to read either of them, if you have any opinion, I'd love that, but they're not actually a part of the read. Yeah, that's how I feel. Okay, let's finish this thing out. X-Men 97, or as you could call it, a whole lot of exposition really quickly. The idea that Cyclops becomes Apocalypse, Apocalypse becomes Cyclops, they share a body, it really comes out of nowhere. I know that X-Man is set up as the future body of Apocalypse, but the idea that he could just jump into someone, it's not really clear. And with so much of this being about an older identity of Apocalypse, where we even see the sort of adventures of Cyclops and Jean Grey Old Man, I feel like we are probably a little bit shortchanged as an audience by the limited scope of this final issue.
I very much agree with that. Yeah, I mean, we do see the old man piloting a mech, which is whatever. It is notable that his face, his fully expressive Apocalypse face, is part of the suit.
Yup.
The lips and everything, the mouth that moves, seemingly the teeth are all a headpiece that this old man is driving.
It's like when the Iron Man armor smiles.
Yeah, it is worse than that, but in the same ballpark. Also, I don't know, this man does not read as Egyptian to me, but whatever. I guess once you get in those celestial machines, stuff happens. Yeah, this is a lot of exposition. We never really see this machine that is using them all work. They're all just kind of sitting. I mean, like, I guess, like, I'm looking at a couple panels where it's like kind of lit up, but like, this is the machine powering the 12 that is going to like end the world and result in Apocalypse ascendancy. Like, it feels like it should be a bigger thing, just even watching it work.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't, you know, like, it's cutting away to Skrull moments, which I love these Skrulls, but I'm like, maybe we don't cut away right now. Maybe we don't cut away to Rogue and Gambit. I just, you know, to Caliban and Deathbird. It's not helping establish this like pretty messy and confused story. And then, yeah, the idea that Apocalypse transferring his consciousness into a body is a gunshot that you can push someone out of the way of. If I ramble long enough and say we could pitch a better idea, Nico will send me a chat with a better idea for how this would work.
What?
I'm not asking for that. I'm just saying, like, again, I feel like we could have sat in a writer's room and just fine-tuned these ideas a little bit. I always go back to that Community line after the dean has gone insane attempting to make the Greendale commercial, and then Abed, when the episode resolves, Abed has cut just a very plain ad out of the dean's insane 4-day shoot. And the two board members who view it, one of them goes, "Great, it's really good." And the other one goes, "It's better than good. It's good enough." It's one of my favorite lines in Community because it is such a sentiment that people have, like a certain type of person has. And a lot of times in comics period, but really like I would say Morrison sets the standard where it can't just be good enough. And we tend to expect a lot better.
Boy.
Before that, like we just get so many things where it's like, this is good enough. And some editor read this script, read this plot, read this combination of things, saw these pages and said, it's better than good. It's good enough. And that's where we get this just very confused plot line that results in, I do think Alan Davis drawing a very cool, upsetting body horror Cyclops Apocalypse amalgam. That I will say, very, very cool.
Yeah, and I feel like Cyclopalypse, as I love to call him, is super interesting looking because he has the body of just a super buff human, but his face is such horror. And like, I love that merging of it. But I think one of the things that is the most, Geraldo opening the vault about this is how much Egyptian identity is used here to no purpose.
Yeah, they're at they're at the pyramids. Apocalypse's non-Skrull foot soldiers are all dressed in the most offensive, like you went to the British Museum circa 1965 before anybody was critical of them, version of what an Egyptian, they're all wearing like pharaoh, hats.
Welcome to the Luxor.
Yeah, it's just absolutely terrible. Nobody with any connection to this culture was a part of this. The other thing I did forget to mention, Beast never looks sexier than when he is wearing a backpack with a strap. It looks just a little bit like a harness. He's such a big, handsome, furry blue boy. And Beast should always, he should always be wearing a backpack. Just always a backpack for Beast. I want to just make sure that gets said.
And in that same identity, he will have some really cool, vaguely human appearances later on that are equally sexy. We have to talk about Ages of Apocalypse. Okay, so Apocalypse the 12 doesn't end, it just stops, which is not the same thing. And Ages of Apocalypse is Uncanny 373, Cable 77, Wolverine 148, Unlimited 26, and X-Men 98. And what I really want to point out is it's actually not those issues, it's just get everybody to cool numbers. This is to get Cable to whatever. Honestly, Cable reboots at 79. It's not super fulfilling, but it's to get Uncanny to 380. It's to get Wolverine to 150. It's to get X-Men to 100. This doesn't do anything. It's 5 vaguely unique AUs. I love 378 for having the 378 has the romance of reintroducing the X-Men. It has the 05 energy, and I love this 05 of Jean, Bobby, Hank, Storm, and Gambit. Sure. Even though Gambit is smoking as a teenager, it's fine.
His adult guardian is just like, go for it, kiddo.
I love, right? It's just, he's like, here's the Pall Malls. I love Cable 77 for being Japan meets Egypt. Fine, whatever. It's fine. Wolverine 148 having the new Fantastic Four with Hulk, Spidey, Ghost Rider, and Logan. Fun. Unlimited 26 gives me Siphon, the character that I need to write. This is her only appearance. I am obsessed with Siphon in an unreasonable way. And then I did think that X-Men 98 is like, it's December 2099, but it's not 2099 at all, is the most
insane 2099 erasure.
And so I don't actually care about any of these AUs, but I care about little bits of all of them. TK, please elevate this conversation. Give us something to believe in.
Yeah, this is a comic that could have been an email. This is a series of comics that could have been an email. You said it exactly right. Like, this is these are a bunch of books where I care about little things. It's really beautiful in the Cable story how Aaliyah is such a big part of it. It's a little problematic because the same writer is like vaguely trying to put him with another woman.
Yup, 2 other women.
Yeah, it's not that it's even problematic. It's just like maybe not the best writing I've ever seen. But like especially like where the other 2 women are concerned, the really good writing is about Aaliyah. And this coming off of the last issue being sort of a retrospective about his family, this is a very beautiful meditation on just like who Cable thinks he is as a person, not as a soldier whose only job is to beat Apocalypse. But that's such a huge thing to contend with. And this crossover storyline is not prepared to contain Cable having an identity, a really important identity crisis, like a really good one. I'm not making fun of it at all. It's really important that it exists, and it so does not belong.
It's tough because one of the things that I love the most about Ages of Apocalypse is I love brilliant re-examinings of what makes characters who they are. Like, you and I get a Mayday reference in the Wolverine issue that May is just crawling all over the place. Like, that's something you and I live for, but there's no pathos, there's no payoff. When you only give an AU 1 issue to breathe, but the whole issue isn't even that AU, you're not really giving it the room to breathe. And so I myself am frustrated by Ages of Apocalypse being less than Age of Apocalypse. We have done some amazing coverage of Age of Apocalypse. We've had such a great time, and we have our 4th issue coming out next week. It's so cool. We've really looked at this universe and we've digested what makes it special. This is not special. This is 5 disparate universes across 4 writers, and none of it really adds anything. It doesn't even really end. It just concludes.
Extremely funny that partway through X-Men 98, something happened. They lost whatever the standard pages that they have for scanning and digitizing are, and it appears that they just did the best they could with literally scanning physical pages of a comic book. I must have to do with the fact that it is so cursed to have put Marrow and Gambit together as a couple and to make them look like that, especially when you, Alan Davis, have been writing this whole thing where, God, we talked on air a bunch. I was like, God bless you for making Gambit avuncular, big brother. Like, he's doing what Wolverine does. He's got this kid, this young girl that needs a mentor, that needs a big brother, that needs an older person. It's not quite paternal, but it is, I'm going to look out for you. I'm going to take care of you. And he later does such a good job doing that for X-23. This has just such, the hints of that starting up. And then Alan Davis makes them in a relationship and then also makes Gambit look so gross.
Yes.
Don't know what to do with it.
Nothing.
Yeah. I love all of the wacky, just really out there ideas that Alan Davis has in this 2099 future that somehow still has nothing to do with 2099, which why would you use that date?
Just make it 2096 and it would be fine.
Yeah. Exactly. But yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. Like, these are little amuse-bouches of AUs, and like, I do feel like there's a way to do that where it works. I think, maybe if each of these had been a one shot with a different name.
That's great. If this was like a 5-week mini, that would be amazing.
Yeah, give each of them like the irascible X-Men, a scrawny fathers. I'm just like give each of them a one-shot name, do a little AU thing, and then maybe make them a little longer and cut out or maybe mute the return to the regular timeline that happens in each of them. I don't know. It just doesn't quite work. It doesn't quite do what it wants to do. Age of Apocalypse was such a huge, beautiful undertaking for all its flaws. It was just massive and a really big deal and just changed the way we felt about comics and shook things up a little bit. And so when you say Ages, that is saying Aliens. That's the sequel. That's how do we do the next big step? And this doesn't feel like that. This just feels like, if we print Ages of Apocalypse on a bunch of covers, please buy them. Buy them, please. And especially because we know, as you said, like, they're kind of just treading water to get to certain issue numbers. We're waiting for Claremont to come back. We're waiting for other things to happen. Please, just like, can we sell some issues while we get to the issues that we actually believe will sell? God, that's just grimy.
And what's unfortunate is when we get to Revolution, it doesn't sell much better, but
yeah, well, I mean, we are slowly, step by step, watching people not buy as many comics, and the people that produce them just not be willing to accept that that's the case.
Why would you buy the comics when the movies are so exciting?
Fair question.
So, all right, I can't believe that Ages of Apocalypse, which was 5 issues, is 5 minutes of our conversation, but I honestly can, because I messaged you being like, I even wonder if these should be their own episode. No, it shouldn't. What I feel could have been 3 annuals, maybe 2 annuals. It's hard because I never want to shortchange a story. How many issues of Powerless did you read? Did you read 5 or 4 or 3 or 6?
I read what we had in the thing.
Did you happen to read the X-Force issue?
I did not read the X-Force issue. I don't.
You missed nothing. Don't worry about it. So I make these lists, and then sometimes I see online that people are like, oh no, you should have also read that. And I'm like, fuck, should you? No. So I don't add it, but I do want to mention that does exist in this crossover. And for those of you who are concerned, no, that is not Freak Show from Excalibur Volume 3. So everybody just calm down. So one of the things about Powerless that really has my attention is that it was meant to be a powerful reset on the X-Men. And so I only looked at the X-Force issue for 2 seconds. I kind of flipped through it, and I definitely read the Marvel fandom summary a little bit tighter than I read the issue. And that's just kind of fine. But Powerless was meant to be the X-Men altogether lose their abilities. Everybody in the Marvel Universe stops being a mutant. And one of the things that I find the most frustrating about that is the pitch is that we know that everything is going to reset 6 months later. So how is that effective storytelling? How is that really doing anything? Now, this whole story is meant to be that the High Evolutionary decides that mutants have a majority on super ability, and they are a difficult thing to deal with, so he decides to take away all of mutant powers. Fine. But Wolverine even says that's like saying we're going to get rid of racism by making everyone white. There is something so flat about this arc, and it encompasses 5 issues, and frankly, the Cable issue could come out of this. The Wolverine issue could come out of this. The only things you really need to read for Powerless are Uncanny 379, Uncanny 380, and X-Men 99. TK, how did you feel about the Claremont co-written, though ghost-written, introduction to the Revolution?
For one, I think you're totally right. The Cable and Wolverine issues could have come out of this. 2, this is the plot of what happens at the end of House of M.
That is correct.
Which is wild. And the thing is, it's so weird that the High Evolutionary comes down and is like, here's a really lengthy explanation of why I'm doing this that some dudes at Marvel in the Marvel offices thought sounded scientific.
Oh my God.
It would have just been much better for him to come and say, hey, I'm a scientist that does experiments, and I'm curious what happens if I turn off. Because he's a villain, he's a crazy bad guy. I love the High Evolutionary. I think he's a great villain. I think he has been used to really cool effect, not in the Guardians of the Galaxy 3 movie. I do like him in Uncanny Avengers. I did like his moments in the Krakoan era. I think he's really cool because, yeah, he's very powerful. And this is a really interesting setup too, because something that I don't think comes up enough is that he really should be Sinister's arch nemesis.
Yes.
Much more than he is. And he is, Sinister comes up here. And the fact that the High Evolutionary has a scientist named Essex on his ship and isn't are you, I have enough resources to know it's weird that you're a geneticist. How are you this smart but this stupid? Anyway,
completely agreed.
Yeah, it's not even why his name didn't have to be Essex. Anyway, they should be doing much bigger storylines with those two together. But yeah, the High Evolutionary doesn't need to come in and give you what you imagine is a good explanation for why he's doing what he's doing. I wanted to see what would happen.
Yeah.
That's is that somebody can do that is really scary. That's all you need. And then what happened, it's really crazy. This is another one, hadn't read it all, wasn't aware this happened. I sort of don't know how you depower all the mutants less than 10 years later and never reference this.
When you even use the same mutants as an example, like Blob.
Blob has back rolls now, of course.
Back rolls.
People, in after House of M, the guy drowns in magma with magma, and she's traumatized by that. But in this, like, another mutant drowns in the water because she's just too low, she's too far in the depths, and she can't get up to air soon. But yeah, it's the exact same thing. We would just be having such a different conversation about so many people and things if, rather than having it be Wanda, if the High Evolutionary had shown up at the end of House of M and gone, I came and did this once because you guys, I wanted to see what would happen, and now I see you actually are crazy volatile.
Y'all are dangerous.
Yeah, I have chosen to eliminate you. That would have been much cooler. This is really tough to read in retrospect because we have all read House of M now, and it just, the most interesting thing is this sort of like revolutionary storyline on Genosha that happens. Mm-hmm. And just the general idea that, like, the X-Men are warriors, and if they don't have their powers, they can grab a bunch of weapons and still fight. That's always a really interesting thing that I don't think is really explored enough.
This is also the formal goodbye to Stacy. Goodbye, Stacy. I will not miss you. Irene Merriweather does come back for more. God knows why she would. And I think that one of the things that this book was seeking to do was give us an excuse to sort of say the X-Men universe that you knew is gone. I mentioned that Claremont was a ghostwriter on this. He actually did write at least the Neo and Domina pages. For those of you who are unaware, the Neo will be the initial major villains of the Revolution era, so get used to them. But one of the things that this book sought to do was it kind of sought to say everything in X-Men has been getting too big. What if we make it all have to be small again? I don't think it does a great job. I think the Wolverine issue means nothing. The fact that Cable doesn't get Powerless till like the last 2 pages of his issue means nothing. And we get more all over the Marvel Universe from the pages of X-Men 99 than we do from, frankly, the other books combined. So I'm of the mindset that Powerless was, again, a page grab. This was get us to those good numbers. And I believe that it's possible that Claremont did have the 6-month gap in mind when he pitched his book, but I don't believe that the 6-month gap being introduced in a very weak arc was a necessary element of that for him. I think this arc is kind of a dud.
I really agree. Shout out to a canonized, horrible idea. I would not, as an editor, I would have said you just have to change this dialogue. Kitty explicitly says...
No, don't bring it up! Why would you say it?
Kitty explicitly says in one of these issues that she is 16 years old.
My insides.
Unforgivable.
Genuinely unforgivable, and I certainly was not loudly shouting over you.
No, I loved it. Believe me, that's I had that reaction while reading it. I was so shocked that this. My dream is for Marvel to do their own version of Flashpoint, Crisis on Infinite Earths, and just streamline some stuff that has gotten out of control, particularly with the sliding time scale. I have always said my pitch for it, and this one I'm giving away for free because I'll never get to the point where they're letting me write this, but somebody else can take this idea. It's just Franklin. Franklin, has huge reality warping powers. His birth is kind of the start of the Marvel Universe. When he was born, he just started screwing with time. And that is why some people, at a certain point in some of this, by the way, Gabrielle Haller came back up.
And Alda
is just not the age, and Alda Huxley. And Gabrielle Haller is just not the age that a Holocaust survivor in 1999 would be.
Sing it, my Israeli brother. Sing it.
There's just not. I'm sorry, I don't know what else to tell you. And yeah, I mean, we've got to do something about this because people are weird ages and things happened at weird times.
You can't make the Holocaust have happened sooner, but you can change that Gabrielle Haller didn't either get older or go into a cryostasis. You can change the fictional character. You can't move the very real Holocaust, no matter what Republicans think.
Exactly. But we have really cool options for an interesting storyline that could, among other things, explain how this is the case and explain some of the worst retcons. And it's just at some point we got to do it. Also, like one of the big reasons I want to do it is because it would have to be a big Secret Wars level story, Jonathan Hickman Secret Wars level story. I'm just tired of doing blood hunts. I'm tired of doing stupid
One World Under Dooms.
Yeah, I'm tired of doing stupid blockbusters where there's no consequence. Like I want us to do one where there's like a really, really, really big consequence. And it doesn't need to be that, everything resets. It needs to be that there's some like big explanations for why things are they are and a new status quo gets set up. Anyway, Kitty says she's 16, which is so fucked up.
Oh my God, that's where this started, right?
So terrible. Really, really, really hate it. It's really fun seeing everybody in normal people pants for one issue. Like if I want to give anything credit, it is that. It is fun seeing everybody in like slacks and a skirt. It's unfortunate because it's drawn by a bad person. We're not going to talk about that anymore. We do get to see everybody just like wearing some clothes for a minute, which is fun in and of itself. And of course, right before the High Evolutionary takes everybody's powers, we get a classic softball game.
It's not just the classic softball game that makes me so happy. It's getting to see the reality of what the classic softball game represents. It's mutants being humans. Seeing Marrow go on a date, honestly, I know I gave Marrow a lot of shit this whole run. We're going to pick her up with Weapon X, and we're still going to love her. And frankly, I love Stacy X, so you can just get the fuck out of the way. I love mutants that don't look quite human. I think they are so cool. Every member of the Ecstatics is my favorite. So, it's not that I am visualist. I guess that's the thing you could be with the X-Men, right?
Yeah.
Seeing Marrow get to have a genuine, lovely human moment is elevating. Yeah. Seeing Danny Moonstar. My big regret is that Storm doesn't go, I can't feel the earth. Okay, time to learn magic. Like, that's one of my biggest regrets in this whole, 6 issues.
Yep.
I don't know. I think, I know Revolution is a mess, and I know it didn't sell well. I don't care. It is the reset that gives us the Death of Colossus, the Eve of Destruction. Maximum Security is terrible, but I'm fine with it. I love that it is the stomping ground that gives Morrison the room to develop his run. I love Casey's Uncanny. It is really obviously, so you know how when you have a really good idea, but you're really, really coked out and you can just kind of be like, oh, that's a cocaine dream. I think Uncanny by Casey is just a really great weekend of cocaine dreams. It's really, it's good. Comics can be nose candy. It's fine. And it's magical, frankly. And I think Extreme X-Men is what happens when a fairy tale rots. And I still really like it, but it's not, it's what happens if Claremont never stopped writing 1986. And it's, 2002 at the time. There's incredible moments like Schism, which are incredible. Prisoner of Fire, which is very good. But there's also, Intifada and God Loves Man Kills Part 2, which I can't believe actually has the God Loves Man Kills name. So it gets us to a place where comics can be controversial again, because I don't think I have that hardcore an opinion of anything in this run. I think at best, in the stuff we've read, I've disliked stuff. I'm excited to hate stuff again. Genuinely, because that's more feelings than I had about a lot of these books. So, I don't know. I feel like everything we've read is so important, and I honestly somehow feel like reading Age of Apocalypse as the alongside with this has been transformational. I've learned more about what I think about fandom from that than I would have if we had just done this on its own. And at the same time, if I had just read Age of Apocalypse in a bubble, I wouldn't have learned why these characters have such an important backstory outside of it. It's been really exciting, and I'm really grateful for it. And I think that you were the right person to do this with, because as much as I said, if there's dead silence, I'm nodding. No, sometimes I'm shaking my head no. And sometimes if there's dead silence, you're going, no. And that's great, because we're not just both so handsome, we're both smart in our own ways. And it's okay to be smart differently. And all of our readers and listeners that have different opinions, whether they're following us by listening to the podcast or watching us on YouTube with the captions on, or whatever they're doing, your opinion is just as valid. And I'm excited for how this made me a bigger and better X fan. And I'm also kind of excited for the illusions it's shattered.
Yeah, I feel really similarly. Like I will say, like, for me, because this was also my first time reading a lot of this, I did get to have, I think, a few more opinions than you did. And so it was sort of interesting to go through all this and really like experience an era that, again, the part of what has been exciting for me the whole time is this wasn't an era I had been to before. And like, this is a lack of my comics knowledge. And it's really interesting to visit a time that, I mean, comics has been such a huge part of my life for most of it, with the exception of the, my teen years. Mostly it was basically my teen years, but not even all of them, because I was like 19 or 18 or 19 when I started back up again. So it was like in this 5-year period, 6-year period from like 13 or 14 to 19.
Your blind spot, as it
were. Yeah, exactly. And most of that I have reread, but there's this chunk that I haven't, and it's been really interesting seeing it. And it's been really interesting just seeing like how much comics is always just planting seeds. And I think a lot of times like the land is just so wild that they forget that stuff is there. There's just this wealth of stuff. And I really do hope that more people than just us experience this era and decide like these are worthwhile things to bring up again and revisit. The way people got so excited about so many things that were brought up and revisited in the Krakoan era.
Honestly, I've never been more excited about creating work with you, because I feel like I understand you better getting to see you experience things at the same time as me when we were reading Krakoa together, seeing you experience things newly as I understood them previously with this era. And, we've also done things where you knew better than I did. And so the balance of all of this really has made me a bigger X fan and a bigger fan of you. So I'm really grateful. From this whole thing, I think my big takeaway is I don't love it when the books are one book. When Uncanny and X-Men can't be read, separately, that's not my thing. I like runs. And I feel like understanding better that I'm a runs boy and not a line boy helps me pinpoint what makes X-Men special for me. And I would love to get your kind of parting thoughts on the Davis into Revolution era, and then where we can find you online.
My thoughts on this era are that it is a very mixed bag, and it doesn't really take any big swings. It takes a bunch of swings. Most of them are not very big. That's unfortunate, because the 12 especially and Ages of Apocalypse should have been one of the biggest swings. It's unfortunate that it wasn't, but I still really, really enjoyed discovering all of this for the first time, seeing so many connections to stuff that I really love, seeing some really interesting writing, some great art, fantastic art during this period, and just getting to experience something. It's funny because like I had never read any of these. There was a lot of stuff I really didn't know, but it's one of those things where like kind of I did know it. Like just if you just have been reading comics for so long, it gets built into the DNA of everything that you read after. And so even if it's not directly referenced, although some of it was, you just kind of, you have a feel for it, and that it's there.
Yeah.
And so like you kind of, you're kind of blind, but you can feel the shape of it. And then to go and actually read it and have your eyes open and get to actually see the thing that you've only sort of just felt and heard. It's really interesting. And if you want to talk to me more about comics or anything else, you can find me at TK Accidental on your socials. What about you? What do you got for parting words?
I've already been lucky enough to say all of my parting words. What I would like to say now is, guys, follow us. We love this. And honestly, I was shocked at how much our show grew during this time. I knew I loved these stories, but I didn't realize that everybody else was a big fan. So if you want to follow us, if you've just been listening on Spotify casually, do us a favor. Google X is for comics, X is for show. Give us a like, a subscribe, a comment, a follow, whatever you want to do. Be part of this conversation so we can keep making art that appeals to you. If you want to follow me, Nico Action, NICOACTION, I post the most on Blue Sky and Instagram, but I'm all over the place, so definitely check me out. If you like the X-Men music you've heard in the background, that's going to be over at Nico Action Music, NICOACTION MUSIC. We love you guys, and we love what you bring to the table. So remember to communicate with us, but 3 things we really need you guys to do. Number 1, please stay safe. It's a crazy world out there. You might get sucked into a bubble and turn into one of the 12. Number 2, please be brave. We know that you guys are Kitty Pryde, and you are 16 and handling all of the God. How is she 16? It's just it's unfathomable. But also, please be sure to evolve daily. Who you were yesterday is amazing. Who you are today is incredible. But who you are tomorrow, that's the revolution. And until we come back to hit out of the park, Age of Apocalypse Epic Book 4, and then X-Men Revolution. We'll see you.
Bye.